The stars over the Orc Empire burned cold and bright. Massive warships patrolled the black void, their hulls reflecting the light of distant suns. The people of the Empire trusted these ships to protect them, but the Queen's mind was elsewhere. Her thoughts were far from the metal corridors and the flashing control panels. They were with her daughter, her only daughter, Princess Varka, who had been gone for years. The Queen, a tall and imposing figure, paced in her private chambers aboard the Central Palace ship. Her green-skinned hands clutched the edge of a console, knuckles white. Every day she imagined her daughter's face, the sharp green eyes, the determined expression she had worn even as a child. Rumors had reached her ears over the years, but none had brought hope. Some said Varka had been captured by raiders in the outer systems. Others whispered that she had vanished entirely, swallowed by the endless dark of space. "Mother," a voice called softly. It belonged to General Thak, the Queen's most trusted advisor. He was broad-shouldered, with scars from countless battles etched across his face. "We have no new reports from the frontier. Nothing suggests she is still alive." The Queen did not answer. She knew what the general was trying to say, that hope was dangerous, that grief could cloud her judgment. But the thought of giving up on Varka was impossible. She had ruled the Orc Empire for decades, and even she could not imagine a life without her daughter. Far from the Orc Empire, in a quiet part of the galaxy, a human scout moved through the darkness. Captain Ryland's ship was small, sleek, and designed for speed and stealth. The humans' world was one that others often underestimated. To most alien empires, humans were weak, fragile, and inconsequential. But Ryland had learned early that humans survived where others failed because they could think, adapt, and act when the odds seemed impossible. The sensors on his ship detected something unusual on a distant planet. Life signals, strong but irregular. He studied the readings carefully. It was a dangerous system, far from any trade route and known for its hostile environment. The logs indicated possible raider activity years ago. His instincts told him this might be important. Ryland sat back in his pilot chair, fingers hovering over the controls. He thought of the countless stories of people lost in space, of those who vanished and were never seen again. Something in the readings tugged at him, a silent challenge. He was going to investigate. The planet's surface was jagged, dark, and unforgiving. Mountains rose like the bones of a giant beast, and storms swept across the plains without warning. Landing a ship here was dangerous, but Ryland's confidence in human engineering and his own skill carried him through. He navigated the ship carefully, avoiding massive craters and sudden winds. The human felt alive, more alert than ever. Every shadow could hide danger, but he welcomed it. After hours of careful exploration, Ryland found traces of a life form. The tracks were fresh, though ragged, as if the owner had been running or hiding. He followed them through rocky valleys and narrow canyons, finally discovering a hidden cave system. Inside, the air was stale, but it was alive with signs of someone who had survived here for a long time. And then he saw her, Princess Varka. She looked different than the portraits he had seen in stolen reports of the Orc Empire. Her clothes were torn and dirty, but her posture was proud. Her eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the cave's entrance, wary of danger. She had survived years in isolation, evading raiders and hostile creatures, using her strength and knowledge of her world. But the strain showed. She was thinner, her movements slower, and the spark of hope in her eyes had dimmed. Ryland stepped forward slowly, hands raised in a peaceful gesture. "I'm not your enemy," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm here to help you." Varka's eyes narrowed. "A human?" she said. Her tone was sharp, almost angry. "Humans are weak. You can't survive here long." Ryland smiled faintly, though his heart raced. "We survive differently. But yes, I can survive here, and I can get you out." She studied him for a long moment, her gaze piercing. Humans were strange to her. They were small, frail, and unarmed compared to orcs, yet she felt something unusual about this one. There was confidence, skill, and something else, a determination she had rarely seen even in orc warriors. "You speak boldly," she said finally. "But how will you save me from this place? The raiders, the storms, even the land itself wants to kill me." Ryland didn't hesitate. "I've faced worse than storms and raiders, but I'll need your help. You know this land. I know how to survive. Together we can leave." Varka considered him. She had survived alone for years, trusting no one. But she also knew she could not leave this planet by herself. Something about the human told her he was different. Perhaps, just perhaps, he could be trusted. The first steps out of the cave were tense. Varka led the way, pointing out treacherous paths while Rylan adjusted his movements to match the terrain. He carried light supplies, tools, and small weapons, but relied more on strategy than brute force. Time and again he avoided hazards that would have crushed most orc warriors. Slowly, Varka began to see what he meant. He could predict dangers, outsmart traps, and navigate hostile environments with creativity. His mind was sharp, his instincts keen. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe she could survive this journey. Maybe somehow she could return home. The nights were cold. They huddled together in makeshift shelters, hiding from storms and creatures that prowled the dark. Around the fire, Varka remained cautious but curious. She asked questions about the human world, about his home and people. Rylan answered honestly with humility but also pride. "You humans are different than I imagined," Varka said quietly one night. "I thought you weak, fragile, but you think fast, you adapt, you survive." Rylan chuckled softly. "We have to. The galaxy is not kind to the weak." A faint smile touched Varka's lips. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel something other than fear. Trust, perhaps even friendship. Days passed, and the journey grew more dangerous. Raiders still roamed, their patrols unpredictable and violent. Fierce storms swept across the planet without warning, and the landscape was constantly shifting. Yet step by step they pressed forward. Each obstacle they overcame made Varka respect the human more, and each success made her wonder if she could truly return to her people. Rylan moved with care, never rushing, always watching for threats. And when danger did appear, he faced it calmly. He had a way of turning impossible situations into survivable ones, using clever traps, misdirection, and timing. Orc warriors were known for their strength, but humans, he showed, could win battles without brute force. Varka's respect grew, but so did her curiosity. Who was this human? How could someone so small survive where even the strongest orc might fall? And why had he come to this dangerous place, risking everything to save a stranger? Rylan noticed her questions, but he did not answer fully. Some things he thought could only be shown, not told, and over time his actions would speak louder than words. Finally, after days of travel, they reached the edge of the planet's deadly terrain. In the distance, Rylan's small ship waited, hidden among rocks and shadows. It was the key to leaving this world, but danger still lurked. The journey was far from over. Raiders could spot them. Storms could strike, and the galaxy itself seemed ready to test them. Varka looked at the ship, then at the human standing beside her. She saw not just a rescuer, but a symbol of hope, a being from another world who defied everything she had been taught. Perhaps humans were not weak. Perhaps humans could change the course of a life, even a galaxy. Rylan extended his hand. "We leave together," he said. "No one gets left behind." Varka hesitated, then placed her hand in his. Trust, fragile but real, began to form, and with that small gesture, a new chapter of their lives began, the return from darkness, the journey home, and the start of a story that neither the Orc Empire nor the galaxy would forget. Above them, the stars shone cold and bright. But in the hearts of the human and the lost princess, a fire had ignited, a fire that would light the way home. The small human ship moved cautiously over the jagged surface of the alien planet. Rocks jutted out like the teeth of some enormous creature, and violent storms swept across the barren plains without warning. Inside, Princess Varka sat quietly, her sharp green eyes scanning the terrain. She was still wary of the human who had saved her, but a part of her could not deny the strange feeling of safety that surrounded him. Captain Rylan piloted the ship with careful precision, keeping them low and close to the natural cover of cliffs and boulders. The storms on this world were unlike anything humans or orcs had faced before. Acidic rains, strong winds, and sudden flashes of lightning that could strike without warning. Most species avoided this world entirely, calling it cursed. But Rylan saw it differently. To him, every danger was a challenge, a test of skill and wit. "Keep your eyes open," he said quietly. "This planet does not forgive mistakes." Varka nodded, gripping the edge of her seat. "I've survived here for years," she said. "I know its tricks, but humans, you are strange. You do not fear it." Rylan smiled faintly. "We adapt. We survive. That's what makes us dangerous, even if we seem small." She studied him for a moment. He seemed confident, but she could see the careful calculations in his eyes. Every move, every adjustment was measured. He was not brash. The small human ship rose from the jagged surface of the alien planet, cutting through the storms that still raged below. Captain Ryland guided it carefully, aware that the galaxy beyond this world was even more dangerous than the hostile terrain they had just crossed. Beside him, Princess Varka watched the stars streak past, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. For years, she had been trapped on this world, surviving alone against hostile raiders and the planet's own dangers. She had almost given up hope of ever returning to the Orc Empire. Now, with a human at her side, that hope seemed within reach. Yet, even as she allowed herself to feel it, she could not ignore the nagging worry that her return would not be simple. "They will come for us," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "My mother's forces. They will see anyone leaving this system as a threat." Ryland glanced at her. "Do you mean the raiders?" "No," Varka replied, her green eyes sharp. "The Orc Empire. They do not know of your existence. If they see a human carrying the princess home, they may assume the worst." Ryland nodded. "Then we need to be careful. Stealth is our ally now." The journey through space was tense. The galaxy beyond the planet was full of hazards, asteroid fields, energy storms, and patrols from various factions. But Ryland relied on human ingenuity, using small adjustments, hidden routes, and clever diversions to stay out of sight. Varka watched him in awe. Orcs valued strength and firepower, but this human had none of the brute force that defined their warriors. Yet he moved through danger with precision, turning intelligence into survival. She realized something important. Humans were underestimated for a reason. Their strength lay in the mind, not the muscle. "Your people fight differently than mine," she said one evening as they rested in the ship's small cabin. "Orcs charge into battle relying on strength and weapons. You think you outsmart your enemies." Ryland smiled faintly. "We have to. The galaxy does not forgive mistakes. Humans survive because we adapt. That is our weapon." Varka considered his words. She had trained for years to be a capable warrior, but even she had to admit that his approach was effective. Survival did not always belong to the strongest. Sometimes it belonged to the cleverest. Their first real test came sooner than expected. A scout ship from the Orc Empire appeared on their sensors, moving fast through the void. Varka's heart tightened. These were not raiders or unknown aliens. These were her people, trained, experienced, and unyielding. "They have found us," she whispered, gripping the edge of a console. Ryland assessed the situation quickly. "Not yet, but they will. We need to move and make it look like we are just another cargo ship leaving this system." Varka watched as he manipulated the ship's systems, dimming lights, masking emissions, and adjusting their course. Every action was precise. She had never seen a human so calm under pressure, so focused. The Orc scout ship appeared over the horizon, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. It scanned the area, searching for anomalies. Ryland guided their small ship through an asteroid field, weaving between rocks with precision that would have impressed even the most skilled Orc pilots. Varka clutched the side of the ship. "You think they will follow us through that?" "They have no choice if they suspect we carry something valuable," Ryland replied. "But we can use the terrain. Humans survive by knowing the environment better than anyone." The asteroids were a dangerous maze, moving unpredictably as gravity from nearby moons shifted their paths. Yet Ryland's skill shone. He anticipated movements, adjusted thrust, and used the shadows to hide from the scout ship's sensors. Varka realized that this human had a different kind of strength, one that relied on thinking faster than the enemy and staying calm under pressure. After hours of careful navigation, they reached a temporary safe zone, hidden behind a massive asteroid cluster. The Orc scout ship passed them by, unable to detect the human's small, concealed vessel. Varka let out a breath she had been holding. "I did not think we could escape them." Ryland shook his head. "You underestimate humans, Princess. We survive where others fail." She looked at him, admiration mixing with disbelief. He was small, fragile even, but every action he took revealed a mind sharper than any warrior she had ever known. Perhaps, she thought, humans were more dangerous than Orcs realized, not because of strength but because of intelligence and courage. As they continued their journey, Varka began to speak more freely. She told Ryland about her time on the hostile planet, about the raiders who had captured her, and about the strategies she had used to survive alone. He listened, absorbing every detail. occasionally offering suggestions or observing patterns that could help them avoid future dangers. "You survived years alone," Rylan said one night as they rested in a small hidden cave on an asteroid base. "That is remarkable. Most species would not last a month in those conditions." Varka's gaze softened. "I had to. I had no choice, but having you here makes me realize how much easier survival can be with an ally." Rylan smiled. "And you are teaching me too. Orcs are strong, disciplined, and smart in ways I never imagined." They shared a quiet moment, both aware of the growing trust between them. In a galaxy that often judged by appearance, they had found mutual respect and understanding. But the peace did not last long. The Orc Empire dispatched a second, larger pursuit fleet, this one fully armed and determined. The transmissions they intercepted revealed the fleet's purpose: bring back the princess at any cost. Humans, they assumed, were intruders or kidnappers. Rylan analyzed the fleet's approach. "They are fast but predictable. If we can create a diversion, we might slip past." Varka nodded. "What do you have in mind?" Rylan explained a risky plan. They would split their ship into multiple smaller drones, replicas of the main vessel, each transmitting the same signals. Then, while the Orc fleet chased the decoys, they would slip through a hidden corridor of space, undetected. Varka's sharp mind worked quickly, adjusting his plan with suggestions drawn from her knowledge of Orc tactics. Together, they prepared the drones, set the coordinates, and launched the deception. The Orc fleet reacted immediately, chasing multiple false targets through asteroid fields and nebulae. Varka and Rylan held their breath as their main ship slipped past the chaos, cloaked and silent. Hours passed like minutes as they navigated through dangerous areas, each moment bringing them closer to the edge of the Orc Empire's jurisdiction. Finally, they emerged into open space, free from immediate pursuit. Varka exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of fear lift from her shoulders. "We made it," she said, disbelief in her voice. Rylan nodded, but his expression remained serious. "We are safe for now, but the Empire will not stop. We need a plan for when we reach the core system." Varka realized he was right. The hardest challenge was still ahead, not the storms or raiders, but the Orc Empire itself. She had once assumed humans were weak, incapable of navigating a world dominated by her people. Now she understood the truth. Humans could survive, outthink and outmaneuver even the strongest opponents. Her admiration for Rylan grew. He was not just a rescuer. He was a strategist, a protector, and a symbol of hope. And as they moved through the stars, Varka began to feel something else stirring within her. A belief that, with this human at her side, she might finally return home. Above them, the stars stretched endlessly, cold and distant. Below, the Orc Empire's patrols scoured space, unaware that a human and a princess had outsmarted them. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and uncertainty, but Rylan and Varka had proven that courage, intelligence, and trust could overcome even the most formidable obstacles. Varka sat in the ship's observation deck, watching the stars blur past. "I never thought I would leave that planet alive," she whispered. "And yet here I am. Thanks to you." Rylan glanced at her, eyes calm but firm. "We survived because we worked together. That is what makes humans, and you, Princess, strong." She smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude and admiration. "Perhaps humans are not weak after all." Rylan chuckled softly. "We are only as weak as we allow ourselves to be." For the first time in years, Varka allowed herself to hope. The journey ahead would be dangerous. The Orc Empire would not easily forgive what they saw as a human intrusion. But with this human by her side, she felt a strength she had not known before. Together they would face the stars, the Empire, and whatever challenges lay beyond. And as the small human ship streaked across the void, carrying a lost princess toward home, the galaxy itself seemed to shift. A new story was beginning, a story of courage, ingenuity, and the unbreakable bond between two very different beings. The void stretched endlessly, a cold black canvas pierced by distant stars. Captain Rylan's small human ship moved swiftly, carrying Princess Varka toward the Orc Empire. For days they had navigated through asteroid fields, energy storms, and patrols, relying on cunning and speed. But now the Empire had noticed. A massive Orc fleet, heavily armed and determined, had arrived to intercept them. Varka gripped the edge of the ship's console, her green eyes scanning the approaching vessels. "They are faster than I expected," she said, voice tight. This is the main fleet, my people. They will not let us pass easily. Ryland's jaw tightened. He had seen numbers like this before, outmatched, outgunned, but he did not flinch. We don't need to fight them with brute force. We fight with our minds. Watch and follow my lead. The stars stretched endlessly before them, cold and distant. Captain Ryland's small human ship moved steadily toward the heart of the Orc Empire, carrying Princess Varka, who had been lost for years. Both were silent, each thinking of what awaited them. The princess had not been home in over a decade, and the Empire would not react with calm when they saw her. Varka looked out the viewport, her green eyes filled with a mixture of hope and worry. Mother will be shocked, she whispered, after all this time seeing me alive, with a human. Ryland adjusted the ship's course. Shock can be dangerous, but so can relief. We need to arrive carefully, calmly. Make them see this is about your safety, not rebellion. Varka nodded. She had survived years alone on a hostile planet. She had endured raiders, storms, and isolation. Now she realized her final challenge would be the reception she received at home. The Orc Empire was vast and proud, and she had no illusions about the reaction of her people, especially her mother, the Queen. The first sign of the Empire came as they entered the outer perimeter. Patrols scanned the area, massive ships bristling with weapons. Varka's heart raced. This was her world, the one she had been separated from for so long, and now it was alive with tension and anticipation. Ryland remained calm, guiding the ship through the patrols. Using careful maneuvers, stealth, and precise timing, he avoided detection. Small decoy signals diverted the patrols while the ship slipped through unseen corridors. Varka was impressed. Humans may be small, fragile, and underestimated, but Ryland had proven that cleverness could surpass brute force. Finally, they reached the inner system, where the central palace ship loomed. Its green-hued hull reflected the light of the nearby sun, massive and unyielding. The Queen's flagship. Varka felt a lump in her throat. Home was so close, yet the tension in her chest grew heavier. They will see us, she said quietly. There is no hiding now. Ryland placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then we show them the truth. You are alive and we survived together. That is all that matters. The approach to the palace ship was tense. Orc security forces scrambled, massive vessels moving to intercept. But Varka and Ryland remained composed. The human had studied the defenses, calculated every possible reaction, and had a plan. Ryland sent a direct transmission to the palace, using the royal encryption codes Varka had memorized. The Queen's Council received it with shock. The message was simple: Princess Varka is alive, accompanied by a human, requesting safe docking. Within minutes, an answer came. Prepare for immediate escort. Do not harm the princess. Varka's green eyes widened. Even after years of isolation, the Empire had not forgotten her. The Queen, she realized, must still care deeply. Ryland guided the ship with precision, following the escort to a secure docking bay. As the ship landed, alarms rang throughout the palace. Guards and advisors crowded around the princess, many reaching for weapons, unsure if this human was a threat. Varka stepped forward, calm but firm, standing beside Ryland. The doors to the docking bay opened, revealing the Queen herself. She was a tall, imposing figure, her green eyes narrowing as she approached. Her staff glowed faintly, a symbol of her authority. Varka, she said, voice trembling with emotion. Is it truly you? Varka stepped forward, meeting her mother's gaze. Yes, Mother. I am alive. This human helped me survive and brought me home. The Queen's eyes flicked to Ryland, wary but curious. A human? Aiding an Orc princess? Her voice was sharp, but beneath it lay relief and disbelief. Why? Ryland bowed slightly, respecting the Queen's authority. Your Majesty, my intention was always to ensure the princess's safety. I have no claim, no agenda, only to return her to you unharmed. The Queen studied him, her piercing gaze assessing every movement, every word. Finally, after a long pause, she spoke. You have risked your life. For my daughter? Ryland nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. Because life is worth protecting no matter who holds it, and because hope should never be abandoned. The Queen turned to Varka, her expression softening. You have grown strong. I feared I had lost you forever. Varka felt tears in her eyes. I survived, Mother. I learned much, and I had help. Humans are different than you imagined, but they can be brave, clever, and loyal. The Queen's gaze returned to Rylan. Your people may be small, fragile even, but you have proven remarkable courage. You have my thanks. Rylan bowed again, this time with a faint smile. It is my honor, Your Majesty. Varka stepped closer to her mother. I wish to show you all that I have endured, that I am still your daughter, and that together, humans and orcs can face any challenge. The Queen's heart swelled. Her child, once lost, now stood before her, alive and determined, and by her side, a human, a being she had once assumed weak, now proven strong in ways that mattered most. Over the next hours, the palace was filled with activity. Advisors, generals, and guards all wanted to know the story of Varka's survival. She recounted her years alone, the dangers she faced, and the ingenuity of the human who had saved her. Every detail was met with astonishment. Rylan spoke humbly but honestly, describing the dangers they had navigated and the strategies they had used to survive. Orcs who valued strength above all were forced to acknowledge the human's cleverness, adaptability, and courage. Varka realized that this moment was more than a return. It was a revelation. Humans, often underestimated, had shown that their minds and hearts could achieve what brute strength alone could not. That evening, in the private chambers of the Queen, mother and daughter spoke alone. The Queen studied Varka, pride and relief shining in her eyes. You have endured more than I imagined, she said softly. And yet you return not broken but stronger. And you brought a human with you. A human I cannot ignore, Varka smiled faintly. He saved me, mother, and I have learned that courage and intelligence can come in unexpected forms. He has earned our respect, the Queen nodded slowly. Then he shall have it. Humans may be small, but they have hearts and minds that rival the greatest orc warriors. Perhaps this is a beginning, not just a rescue. Varka felt warmth in her chest. For the first time in years, she was home. And she realized something important. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, but also full of allies in unexpected places. Rylan, standing quietly beside them, felt a sense of accomplishment. He had risked everything for a princess he barely knew, and yet his actions had forged trust, respect, and perhaps even friendship between their worlds. He had proven that humans were more than what appearances suggested. The Queen finally turned to the human. You have brought my daughter home. You have earned your place in my eyes, and perhaps in time in the eyes of my people. Rylan bowed. That is enough, Your Majesty. My only wish was to see her safe. Varka took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years lift from her shoulders. I am home, mother, and I am alive thanks to him. Together we survived the impossible, and together we will face whatever comes next. The Queen studied them, her stern gaze softening. Then let this be a lesson to all who underestimate humans, and to all who believe strength alone is enough. Courage, intelligence, and loyalty can change the course of lives and of worlds. Varka and Rylan exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They had survived against impossible odds, proven that humans could outthink even the strongest, and returned home to tell the tale. Outside the palace, the Orc Empire's fleet adjusted, realizing that the human had outsmarted them at every turn. Inside, the Queen began to rethink her assumptions, understanding that this single act of courage might reshape the way her people viewed allies, enemies, and the vast galaxy beyond their home. For Varka, the journey was far from over. She had returned home, but she had also discovered something profound, that the universe was bigger than strength, bigger than fear, and that humans, unexpected, underestimated humans, could be a force the galaxy had never fully appreciated. And as the stars twinkled silently beyond the palace windows, Varka, the Queen, and the human who had brought her home knew that a new chapter had begun, one filled with hope, courage, and the promise of friendship that transcended worlds. The great hall of the Orc Empire's palace thrummed with anticipation. News of Princess Varka's return had spread like wildfire, and orcs from all ranks gathered to witness the moment. The massive chamber, adorned with banners of green and gold, was filled with advisors, warriors, and citizens who had feared the princess was lost forever. At the center of the hall stood Varka, tall and composed despite years of hardship. Beside her was Captain Rylan, the human who had survived impossible dangers to bring her home. He was small, unassuming compared to the towering orcs around him, yet his presence commanded attention. The Queen, Her green eyes gleaming with pride and relief, stepped forward. "My people," she began, her voice echoing through the hall, "we have witnessed something remarkable. Princess Varka, who was lost for many years, has returned to us alive and well. And she was not alone. A human against whom many of us held prejudice risked everything to ensure her safety." A murmur spread through the crowd. Humans were not well known in the Empire, and many orcs saw them as weak, unpredictable, and fragile. Yet here stood one who had outwitted fleets, survived deadly worlds, and delivered their princess unharmed. Varka stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. "My people," she said, "I have been gone for years.